Democrats will regain House control even with all of the Republican gerrymandering that has been going on. And in today's video, we'll be going over why. So this is the consensus map based on the polling, 205 seats for the Democrats to 211 for the Republicans. This, at the start, doesn't put Democrats in a great position. They're definitely fighting an uphill battle. We can look at a map that's a little more favorable for the Democrats. This is the Kalshi betting markets map that gives us an idea of which way each congressional district is leaning. And there is, because of that, a prediction market based on each district, and it ranges from 100% Democrat to 100% Republican. I don't think any of them are actually 100%. Some of the districts maybe, but that's going to be the call there. So in this map, Democrats start out at a much more rosy picture, 225. You only need 218 seats for a party to control the House, so that is putting Democrats in a good position. They could afford to lose all of the toss-up state districts, and there are really only 6 of them, which is crazy. We've seen fewer and fewer competitive districts in the U.S. This has been for a couple of reasons, but primarily for the partisan redistricting, gerrymandering, normal redistricting, whatever you want to call it. And I do think both parties are certainly guilty of it. We've seen this latest round primarily kicked off in the state of Texas, where 5 seats were drawn to flip from red to blue. And if you take a look there at Texas, Texas has got definitely some interesting maps there. You can see small sections of the urban areas tied in with large swaths of rural Texas. And some of these are in the red that were drawn to be safe red were not meant to ever elect a Democrat. They were purposely drawn to be safe Republican. But as you can see here, there are even a couple there in the Dallas area, if you can see that have districts where Democrats, where it is still lean Republican, but it's only lean Republican instead of safe. And there are a couple instances of lean Republican, but there are quite a few more of likely Republican, especially in Texas. We've seen this as an impact of all the gerrymandering that's been going on. As you can see, there are quite a few districts in the likely red column. Republicans have 63 in that column, while Democrats only have 26. So largely it's because this November is shaping up to be a good election year for Democrats, and Republicans have attempted to counter that by gerrymandering various states. And then California, I will be fair to the other side. Democrats gerrymandered the state as a response to what happened in Texas. The really only other good bit of good news for Democrats came in the state of Utah. As you can see there, and realistically, that likely district is certainly voting red. I'm not sure why it's in the likely margin, but some people are optimistic enough that it will go blue. Personally, I don't believe it. But the district there in the Salt Lake City area, the small blue dot there, that one was a flip from safe red to safe blue. Utah Republicans had a very gerrymandered map that split up Salt Lake County into every congressional district. The city actually that I live in Salt Lake, and it was cut into all 4 congressional districts, and it was definitely a Republican gerrymander, and the courts struck it down, a judge, and ultimately resulted in a redrawing of the maps that flipped 1 seat from safe red to safe blue in the Salt Lake City area. But that's really been the only bit of good news for Democrats. Republicans have gerrymandered, mid-district redistricted, mid-decade redistricted quite a few states. Ohio was a relatively fair one. That wasn't quite as much of a Republican gerrymander, but it's been pretty plain and obvious in states like Missouri there, as well as Texas, like I mentioned. Florida has done several rounds of gerrymandering, and as you can see there, Alabama flipped 1 seat. They used to have 2 safe Democratic seats, but now they only have 1 likely blue, and Louisiana, largely because the VRA was overturned because of the Supreme Court decision, meaning that it gave Republicans the green card to keep gerrymandering the South. As you can see, Tennessee is a particularly egregious example of this. There are no Democratic-leaning districts in a state that, if I remember correctly, has 10 House seats. And in a state that certainly a large population vote blue, especially in the major cities. But you can see there, similarly to Texas, the cities in Tennessee are cut up and combined with large swaths of rural land. And then, like I said, Louisiana, Alabama, North Carolina gerrymandered, so now there are very, very few Democratic districts there in the state of North Carolina. Democrats tried to gerrymander the state of Virginia. Ultimately, that was struck down by the courts, so that was some bad news for the Democrats. But like I said, it's this redistricting, gerrymandering that's been going on mid-decade has definitely put Republicans in a more advantageous spot. But even with all of that, as I hinted at the beginning, Democrats are still sitting at 225. This isn't what they're at right now, but this is what Kalshi markets predict them to be at. And that is generally a pretty good position. They can afford to lose every competitive seat, as well as every tilt blue seat, as well as even 2 of the lean blue seats. And realistically, I think Democrats will be winning the majority of the competitive districts in the tilt column for either party, just because it's shaping up to be a really good year for Democrats. Some are going to be, of course, staying in the Republican column, but I think the majority of competitive districts, just like in 2018 during the last Trump administration, where Democrats picked up, if I remember correctly, it was like 40 seats. I don't think that will be quite as possible or as big of a margin for Democrats this November, primarily because all the gerrymandering that's been going on, it makes it quite a bit more difficult. But it will be especially interesting to see if any of these districts drawn by Republicans or Democrats in California end up becoming more competitive than they were ever drawn to be. I think that the Democrats are in a more likely position for this example for likely and lean red state districts that were drawn to be safe red to possibly be a little more narrower than Republicans are hoping. Like I said, I don't think a flip to the Democratic Party in those districts is the most likely situation at the moment, but it will be interesting to see what happens. So that's going to be the call there. And the betting markets at large have Democrats. Their chances have actually gone down since the gerrymandering has continued, but they're still sitting at above 75%. Democrats are in a good position, but that's going to be the call there. Democrats will regain control of the House. This happens when Democrats, the party that is in control of the presidency, tends to do quite well in the midterms, and I think that the headwinds for Democrats will help them significantly enough to flip the House, even with all the Republican gerrymandering that's been going on. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.